architects, engineers, physicists, scientists, chemical engineers, structural engineers, and then airline pilots, fighter pilots, the former head of Star Wars program, all coming out saying 9/11's an inside job. The planes stood down. The buildings were blown up. The former German defense minister, Andres von Müller, we first interviewed him about 7 years ago, before his book was even out, called The CIA and 9/11, where he details how they did it. In fact, I want to get Andres von Müller back on. And, you know, they're just counting on the American people not being able to face the horror of this. But if they take 4,300 plus foster kids, declassified public, and radiate them to death, kids they'd stolen from parents, killing them, that's our own government. They wouldn't kill 3,000 people on 9/11 to get a police state, attack all these nations, take our rights. So this is what we're dealing with. Niels Harrit is just an amazing individual. He's one of many other scientists, and these are published peer-reviewed reports, who are going out, you know, with the samples that have the custody chain control and testing it, and it's explosive thermite residue in the towers. Now, we've also had the underwriting laboratories engineer on, Kevin Ryan, who saw their internal reports how the towers had to be blown up, spoke out about it, and got fired. We have him coming out and pointing out that the key people at NIST that are doing the whitewash just so happen to be, of only a few dozen people, the world experts for NASA and others in exploding thermite. And it turns out unconventional insulation was put on in 99 in Tower 1, 2, and 7, where the CIA was based in 7. So very interesting to have that going on with just a basic investigation. So Niels Harrit has been an associate professor of the Department of Chemistry, University of Copenhagen for 37 years, wrote a scientific peer paper with 8 other authors titled Active Thermitic Material Discovered in Dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center Catastrophe, published in the Open Chemical Physics Journal. The paper by Harrit concludes that the chips consisting of reacted and partially reacted or detonated super thermite are present in the samples of the dust of Hoffman's essays were written to help explain the findings of the paper to the layperson and to examine a hypothetical scenario involving the Harrit paper's findings. And there's links to all that at globalresearch.ca. We have those up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. So Professor Niels Harrit joining us from University of Copenhagen. Thank you so much for coming on, sir.
I'm here. Thank you for being on your show.
Yes, sir. It's good to have you. Okay, you got the floor. Tell us about the research, the papers, explosive thermite, what we're dealing with, why you got into this research, what the findings were.
Well, we're dealing with the dust, which was produced when the World Trade Center collapsed. These were thousands of tons that everybody has seen when the towers and Building 7 came down. Now, this dust, when you see the material, it's kind of dull, gray, olive green powder. And if you imagine this in a plastic bag, what we have done and other people have done was to take a very strong magnet and you pull it along the plastic bag. And along with the magnet, some stuff comes up the plastic bag when you pull the magnet up the bag. And this is magnetic. What you extract by the magnet is magnetic. Now, if you take a look on whatever comes up with the magnet, there are 2 very important components of whatever you extract by this. One is some tiny spheres of what would you call them in English? Tiny balls, tiny spheres. Is that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But today I'm not too good at English because I was getting your name wrong. I know it's Niels Harrit. So please continue, Professor. Yes, there are these teeny little balls that are given off during the thermite reaction, as Professor Jones found. But you separately did your own study on this and had similar findings. So yes, that's correct in English. Go ahead, Professor.
That's the one thing. And these tiny spheres are mainly composed of iron. And they are in themselves a proof that some thermite has been used, because these are the remains of the thermite after the reaction. This is reacted thermite. Now, the new thing is that along with these metal iron spheres are some tiny, we call them chips. We call them red-gray chips because they're red on one side and gray on the other side. And the largest of these chips you can just see with a naked eye. They're about 1 millimeter. And but the majority of them are so small that you have to get them under a microscope in order to see them. That is, they're less than a millimeter, say 1/10 of a millimeter. And they have a red side and they have a gray side. Now, the red side is the interesting side in this connection, because in that we have found the ingredients of thermite. And the most important ingredients is iron oxide, which one variety of iron oxide is rust. And this is known by most people. And the other component is aluminum. Now, it's very important that these two ingredients are there as tiny, tiny particles.
And those are the exact accelerant, correct, Professor, that makes normal thermite become explosive thermate, correct?
No, not quite.
Okay, go ahead.
But because if we leave the thermite for a minute, the thermate for a minute, you're mixing up thermite and thermate. So until further, please let me call it thermite, which is the material which has a lot of energy. Now, this energy can come out either as heat or in a chemical reaction where you get a pressure, where gases is involved. This is what happens in an explosive, dynamite or TNT, whatever. In an explosive, you have a reaction which gives off gases, which has pressure, which is a kind of a punch, or you knock things into pieces.
A push.
A push. Okay, it's a very hard push. This is how an explosive works. And the chemical reaction produces a gas at high pressure. But the energy in the thermite can also be released as heat. And this is a tremendous amount of heat. If this is the way it works. The point with the nanothermite is that the other stuff you put in can make it work either way. That is, you can get the energy out as heat, or you can get the energy out as pressure, as an explosive.
Ah.
And regarding the red chips, we do not know, actually, which function it has. This has to be cleared up in future investigations.
But is this clearly a foreign substance? I mean, do you agree? Does your research concur, or with Professor Stephen Jones' research, that this is the thermite reaction, and that it has the same, when they do that spectrographic analysis, that it has the same signature as the thermite and thermate that they've tested?
Excuse me, I didn't get the question. What you mean signature? This is thermite, and
yes.
It certainly should not be there.
Yes, okay, exactly.
This is definite, and it is a very advanced variety of thermite. It's nanothermite. So this stuff definitely should not be there.
Yes,
and one of the major point or result of our conclusion is that those who put it there should tell us when, how, and why it got there.
Well, people, Professor, always ask, how could Al-Qaeda get into Tower 1 and 2 and 7? 7 was FBI, CIA, Defense Intelligence, IRS, and what was a National Security Command Center, the largest CIA subbase outside of Langley, Virginia, in the world. And I wonder how Al-Qaeda snuck into the CIA base and did that. Yeah. I wonder why the media didn't make a big deal about this. You know, you got thermite in Tower 1 and 2 and 7, according to others who found it. But I mean, I'm digressing here. So this is thermite. It's in there. Other people found this and tested it. What does this mean to you?
Well, it means, well, basically, I can see this is we can all agree that a crime was committed on September 11th. This, I guess, everybody can agree upon. And in my view, this crime has never been probably investigated and far from solved. So what we are providing as scientists with this work is the forensic evidence for this investigation, which has to come. And if I may repeat, that this stuff should not have been there in the dust.
You're listening to GCN, the world leader in independent talk radio.
That's obvious. And those who put it there should tell us how it got there and why it got there.
Professor, how does this... Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, this is energetic materials. And if I may finish the thermite discussion.
Yes.
Because thermite is what I told you before. Thermite is a special variety of thermite in which you put sulfur in. And it has the ability to lower the melting point of steel. So if you put sulfur in, the obvious purpose is to use the heat developed to melt steel. And I think it's very obvious that this is what happened in the towers, where you could see molten metal pouring out.
Stay there, Professor. Professor Harrit, Niels Harrit, please stay with us. We'll give out any websites or other key places where folks can read your paper. We really appreciate you joining us. Back after this quick break. We've got you till 45 after, sir. Infowars.com. Hope you are listening to what you're hearing here. The good old folks at New Silver Solution. And the website is supernaturalsilver.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. This is something that kills bacteria, viruses, you name it, well documented. They've got it down to a super small nano-sized particle. Supernaturalsilver.com. Check them out at Infowars.com. Supernaturalsilver.com. There's been a lot of new developments in the swine flu hoax. It's pretty much sure now that it's a hoax. If we start seeing a bunch of deaths early this next week, then still, I mean, the regular flu kills a lot more than that. All this grandstanding, all of this, it's a big distraction from other issues, like the one we're covering now with Professor Niels Harrit, just an amazing individual, wrote a scientific paper with 8 other authors titled Active Thermetic Material Discovered in Dust at the 9/11 World Trade Center. Professor, before we go any further in this segment and the next with you, are there any particular websites? I mean, I know globalresearch.ca has your paper posted. I know that the Journal of Open Chemical Physics journal has it posted. Do you have a personal page or a site you'd like to tell people about?
No, not really. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. No. I was just, just offering. Now, explain to us, how did you get interested in this to research it and look at it?
Well, I got hooked on the 9/11 story when I saw Building 7 coming down. And this was the revelation, like, I think it was 2.5 years ago. But accidentally, I saw Building 7 going down on a video disc my wife had gotten. And from that moment on, there has been no way back. It's as simple as that. When you as a scientist see Building 7 going down, you say, what? And then I had to push the button again and say, what? And I pushed the button 10 times. And my jaw was hanging, So, and from that moment, if you're a decent person, there's no way back. You cannot lie to yourself and say, I haven't seen this. And you wonder, of course, as a scientist, why and how does this happen? Because there's a phenomenon. It is unexplainable on the background of the official conspiracy theory. And I had never heard about Building 7 before. That in itself was an eye-opener. What is this? And this was Stephen E. Jones. The lecture he first gave on Brigham Young University.
Yes.
The Ethics Center there. That was that lecture. This was the first time the situation at all caught my attention. And from that moment on, as I told you, there's been no way back, because I was naive enough to say that if somebody stands up on a soapbox and tells the truth, it would run by itself. But during the next month, I found out that this was not the case.
Yeah, national
so
news.
I've been kind of hooked and sucked even more into it, yeah.
And then you find out more and more, like BBC reported the Tower 7 had fallen before it fell, and they reported exactly how it fell, and so did CNN, and then we found out they were fed a Reuters report of false scripting, and then you just add the evidence on that. But now you've gotten samples, tested it, it has this in it. I'm sure you've seen, since you've been researching, the fact that NIST happens to have all these explosive thermite experts working in it, and they're the people, it seems, covering up 9/11. I wonder why they're doing that.
Well, there's an excellent paper by Kevin Ryan on these relationships between different people and different laboratories and NIST. But what I was pretty fast sucked into the science aspect of World Trade Center, and at some point felt the commitment as a scientist to take care of that. So maybe I think probably the only person in Denmark who has actually read the NIST reports.
Yeah, you are sticking with that. And we're going to do a final segment. We're about to break and just come back for 10 more minutes with you. I'm going to cover the flu. But, Professor, we appreciate your courage. You've been on national television now in the Netherlands. The media is giving you attention. Other peer-reviewed journals are doing similar studies. And the findings are, this was going on. What type of response are you getting from people in Europe? I know I've seen polls where the majority of people in Europe think it was an inside job.
Actually, it is boiling. It's growing rapidly day by day. And it's true, I've been on national television, and there are two clips. Actually, one of them has been posted on YouTube and seen by many people, I realize. And the other one will be coming up very shortly, I can announce.
Oh, and good. Well, stay there, Professor. We've got Niels Harrit, professor at the Department of Chemistry, University of Copenhagen for 37 years, joining us. Quick break. That was a short segment. I'll come back with you, sir, talk about whatever you wish. But what is the establishment going to do as it comes out that those towers were blown sky high? Now, what's going to happen? Where's all this going? Stay with us. All right. Huge new developments on the flu front coming up when our guest leaves us here in a few minutes. But Niels Harrit, a professor over in the Netherlands, my parents' favorite place to visit, by the way, in Europe. I've never been there, but I've got to get over there sometime. Over there with all the great folks. But okay, Professor. I mean, in closing, where would you like to see this investigation go now? Because there's other scientists, other engineers doing the same studies, finding the same thing over and over again. No way this should have been there. You know, we originally had the thermite hypothesis by Stephen Jones because of the molten metal pouring out of the sides, because of the oxidization, the sulfidation of the steel. Then he found the little metal spheres that had the exact makeup of a thermite reaction. And then he tested thermate. It had that reaction. And now you've done separate studies. As more and more of this comes out and then it gets peer-reviewed, what is the establishment going to do?
Well, hopefully we'll get the investigation we've all been asking for a long time. And I appreciate, of course, the news value of this investigation. But basically, we're just confirming what has been obvious for a long, long time. As some of us know, that the 3 skyscrapers in New York were demolished intentionally on September 11, 2001. And hopefully, I'm sure, absolutely, I'm certain, I can feel it, that those who know this is growing by vast numbers every day, thousands of people every day. So when we reach critical mass, it will what you call it, provoke an investigation.
Unless Yeah, well, folks are waking up quicker to this than they did JFK. That took 20 years to get a majority. Now it's over 90% in the
we
average
can't wait for that.
I was about to say, yeah, go ahead.
We have to restore, first of all, the power of the press as an independent institution in our democracy. This is the most important thing, to restore the press. And before this is done, we cannot solve the even larger issues at hand.
I agree with you. I agree, Professor. Yeah. We've got to have the info war. We've got to have the alternative media and the people's voice to tell the truth to ever counter this. That's what we're trying to build here, and we're starting to win that fight. That's why Burma's just walked up and showed me 3 more hit pieces on me today. They are coming after us big time. So, folks, pray for us. We're in the thick of the storm here. And speaking of that, Professor, have you gotten any heat from the university or any threats from anybody for what you're doing?
No, not really. I mean, the situation with the university was settled almost a year ago in a situation where I actually had the opportunity to lay down the facts for my colleagues, and they respect that, of course. So no, that is not a problem, and no real threats, no harassment, and I have got, I don't know how many emails since this paper come up, and they are all supportive. It's so nice. Let me get this opportunity to whoever has sent me an email to thank